Good morning. I wanted to give everyone an update and, let everyone know what we're dealing with and what we're going to do, what we don't know what we're going to do. So we are at the emergency vet this morning. So if you don't know, real quick recap, a 8-month-old puppy was brought to us yesterday morning, delivered to our facility. Unresponsive. He was brought by a homeless couple. They had him in a little wagon. I suspected immediately severe dehydration, a heat episode. Of course, there were some other things. A lot of these illnesses have such similar, symptoms. Meningitis, severe dehydration, heat stroke. Not parvo, but distemper sometimes early on. So many things. They have all these similar, exact same symptoms. I mean, then when, everything fine tunes and you get to specific diagnoses. But initially, to look at a dog, there's so many similarities and symptoms you can't exactly diagnose. So, of course, Rockstar Rescue is not a vet facility. We don't have the ability to do blood work right there in-house. And we weren't rushing him to the emergency vet because the idea was to at least get him stable. If it was severe heat, which I surmised because he's with homeless people, they're encamped right down the street from our rescue. It was 115 degrees the other day, 110. Then yesterday or the day before, it was a little bit cooler, like 101, but it was so humid. So this poor dog, is out in that element and in the heat. And he's a puppy. He's not, built up his system to take that kind of abuse, basically. Not abuse from the people, but abuse from the elements. Anyway, so we brought him in, we stabilized him-ish. We gave him, sub-Q fluids, and we were giving him syringe water, syringing beef broth to get the sodium back in his system. We started him on some doxycycline just as a preventative. If there was anything, any kind of tick-borne disease or something, the doxycycline would help. Doxycycline would also help if he had meningitis and possibly early stages of distemper as well. So what we were doing wasn't out of the scope of what would be done to treat most of these things initially anyway, other than blood work and actual IV fluids, which is different from sub-Q fluids. So we stabilized him and we were seeing improvement. There were areas where he would plateau, then he would improve, and then he would kind of plateau and improve. He wasn't really lifting his head. He definitely wasn't standing or walking, but his eyes were brighter. He was looking like he was feeling better. He was acting like he was feeling better. He was actively biting at and actively licking the syringe when we would feed him instead of just passively laying there and letting us put it in his mouth. So those were all good signs. Now this morning, it was a little bit different. Throughout this, he has presented with some stiffness. So he lays there and he kind of does this little paddle thing every now and then, which is also a good sign. It shows that his muscles are getting oxygen and circulation and that he's wanting to stand up. This wasn't just passively paddling. It was like a paddling like he wanted to stand up. It wasn't a seizure. So I took that as a good sign. But every now and then, intermittently, he would just kind of stiffen up, almost like he was stretching. And he would stretch out his legs, and he would kind of flex his neck. And I took that as pain. So we incorporated a little bit of CBD to help with the pain. I didn't want to give him pain meds, since I felt like his organs were kind of shutting down from probably heat or whatever else was going on. So it was all going fine. Now, this morning, he wasn't really worse, but he definitely wasn't better. And he wasn't proactively trying to bite that syringe when I was feeding him and really being excited about getting supplements or the fluid. So I felt at that time that it was time to bring him to an emergency vet. I needed some blood work done, and I needed to see what we were dealing with. So this is where it gets fun. I'm not a vet. technically. I have not gone to vet school, but I have been dealing with medical dogs and triaging medical dogs for 15 years. So there's an element of, I know what I'm talking about. There's also an element of, I don't know all the technical, clinical issues that vets learn at vet school and their experience. So hopefully with my experience and their experience, we meet in the middle. And that was the hope for today. So I have a very thick estimate. Can you see that? A nice thick estimate of what they want to do today. Of course, initially it was presented like, oh, this dog is in massively critical decline. He needs 3 days to a week of hospitalization, IV fluids, all kinds of tests. Sure, of course, in an ideal world, if we were a rescue that brought in, tens of thousands of dollars every month and had that kind of funding, you can bet your butt I would be spending it getting this dog the care he needs. He's young. He's a sweetheart. I see life in his eyes. So yes, I want to do all that for him. The 3-day estimate, including full blood work and IV fluids and hospitalization and isolation in case it is distemper and all that stuff. That 3-day estimate was, let me go to that. That was $7,000. Is that out of the realm of possibilities? No, we have some good donors. A lot of people can't afford that. So it wasn't said. It wasn't outright said, euthanize, but I felt like that's kind of what they were hinting, bringing up all the worst case scenarios, and maybe they're just preparing me for like what could happen. But a lot of vets want to jump to euthanize. So I'm not saying that that's what they did, but it just felt like they're suggesting that, which I don't see that in him yet. If I saw something in his blood work, or if I saw like this massive decline and I saw in his eyes that he is suffering or that it was time, I am the first one that will be like, call it. But that's not what I saw. In fact, he has not lifted his head the entire time we've had him. We've had him now 26 hours. I haven't seen him lift his head yet. He lays there. We syringe feed him. I lift his head. And if I were to take my hand away, his head would just drop back down. Now, we load him up to bring him to the vet. I'm driving here and I look at my rearview mirror and he is fully standing in this crate, in that crate. He's fully standing in the crate on all fours, standing, looking out the back window. I was like, what? What? Why am I taking you to an emergency vet? But it could have been adrenaline because he's in a car wanting to know what he's doing. But that was amazing. And that, again, also tells me there's some life in there. He's a fighter. He wants to live. He's a baby. So I'm not ready to euthanize. But again, I will euthanize this dog if he needs it. You know I will. I've had to do it. It sucks. It's heartbreaking. I can't tell you what I've been through with euthanizing dogs, but I don't see it. I'm not ready. So, again, the first 3-day estimate was $7,000. I said, okay, what if we give him like 24 hours? What if we do blood work, give him some IV fluid, get him as stable as possible? Let's see if he improves or declines or stays the same within 24 hours. That will give me a good estimate of which direction we need to go. I thought, okay, well, if 3 days is $7,000, 1 day should be a third of that. No, 1 day is about half of that because a lot of it is set up and initial the blood work and stuff. So, I think the I don't know where it is. Yeah, the 1 day or 24 hours would be almost $4,000, $3,800. Okay, so I said, okay. Let me make a video. Let me get a hold of some donors and see if we can at least get him 24 hours of care. Now, we posted about him a couple times yesterday. We received a lot of crap from a lot of know-it-alls and experts in the field, behind their keyboard experts who've not done a 1/1000th of what I've done in 15 years that want to criticize me for what I am doing on a 4th of July holiday. But that's neither here nor there. We had amazing donors who out of nowhere got us about $800 to give him the care that we were providing. And it is paid for today because I said, okay, I want to do the blood work to get some levels, know where we're at with that, and do a parvo test. Unfortunately, there is no test for distemper, which I found to be strange because I've had dogs that we have gotten after they had survived distemper, and they did blood work that said it showed antibodies, meaning that they survived distemper. So there must be some kind of blood work that shows distemper, but they said there isn't. So, okay. So to do some blood work, to do a parvo test, to get him started on some IV fluids, at least, for like an hour here to see what's going on, I dropped $1,000 on that. So that is where your funds that you donated yesterday was for this $1,000 that I just paid. But I don't think an hour of care is going to do much for him. It may stabilize him a little bit, make him feel better with some fluids, but I think we're going to get some results with the blood work that we're doing here. They also said his blood pressure was significantly low, which could indicate, organs shutting down from the dehydration, or from whatever may actually be going on with him. So a lot to digest there. A lot is being thrown at you, but we really don't have answers. But I think this is a good start. The emergency exam, a couple tests, parvo or lichia tests, and some blood work and some IV fluids. So he's here right now. We're going to start that. I would prefer, to give him the 3 days. To give him 3 days. I think, 72 hours is a good indicator. But that would cost $7,000. And we, at that time, could get answers that would be like, oh, okay, he has XYZ. We're still going to need to put him down in his best interest. Or he could completely improve with that. We don't know. But I wanted to, put that to you. He is here right now. Like I said, we did the $1,000 to get him started on some fluids and get some test results. I can come back to you with at least some blood work results, and we can go from that. But minimum, I think he does need 24 hours. I would feel comfortable giving him 24 hours and seeing how he does, seeing if he improves. The fact that he stood up in the crate on the way here, my jaw dropped. I was like, what? Like, I think I almost crashed. I was like, what? I'm looking in my rearview mirror like, did that just happen? That tells me he's a fighter. I wouldn't be coming to you with an appeal like this if I felt it was a lost cause. I think he has a chance. He's a young baby. He's not going to go back out on the streets. He's not going to be returned to the homeless couple that brought him in. I can tell you that. He will be adopted to a good loving home and live in air conditioning for the rest of his life. If he makes it through this, which I am hoping he will. I'm hoping it's not distemper. I'm hoping it's not something that he can't overcome. I'm hoping he's not too far gone with any sort of systematic failure due to being out in the streets and being in the heat, and whatever level of dehydration has already occurred. So I think 24 hours is a good starting point. Now for that, I think I said the estimate for that was $4,000. I've paid $1,000 of that. That means I would need to raise another $3,000 while I'm sitting here in the parking lot of ARECA Vet on Country Club and McKellips. So if you wanted to come here and see him and make a donation, great. If you want to call here, it's VCA ARECA on Country Club. You can call and make a donation to Cartel under Rockstar Rescue. Or you can donate on our Venmo, our PayPal, our Zelle, which I will also put a link in this video. I hope you watched all of this. I didn't want to ramble on for 15 minutes, I see, but I am here he needs more help. Let's try to get it for him. Thanks, guys.